the right answer. And that is important too, even when it's wrong. Because honestly, vulnerably, you can explain that to someone and say, listen, I actually did not know that this thing that I was going to do was going to hurt you. I did not know that this thing I was going to do was going to fail the way that it did. But it happens. So, what's up? We are on another episode at the TOC podcast, and you are with your host, Keegan. Today, we are talking acknowledgement, right? Um, let's start off with an easier thing, right? Let's do a little week recap quickly. So, over the course of the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many weeks I have missed out on speaking to you guys, there's been a couple of things that have happened in my life. And some of that has actually pushed me a little bit deeper into what I think the podcast is supposed to be. So I think there are normal things that we know. I think there are normal things that we understand. And I think there are normal things that make us who it is that we are. But I also think none of us know what those normal things are. And we get a lot of those things wrong. So I'm going to take very simple things and I'm going to say not much about them. And I know that doesn't make much sense. But the point of this is for us to have some kind of conversation so that we can speak to one another. And yeah, I want to know what you're feeling, I want to know what you're thinking. And even if we don't agree, especially if we don't agree, please feel free to let me know. There will be a new addition to the podcast very, very soon. I will be adding an Adonis segment. You have no idea what that means right now, but we will make sense of it when we eventually do. And that will just be so that I can be a part of the conversation thing. But there's another piece that I also realized in the last couple of weeks, and it is that I really do struggle asking for help on the most normal of things. Whether that is learning new things that should have made sense to me, could have made sense to me, but don't. And that's what led to kind of what this week's episode is about. So this week's episode, we're going to be focusing on acknowledgement, or rather the power of acknowledgement. I think it's really easy to say that we need to be empathetic. I think it's really easy to say that we need to be understanding and supportive and non-judgmental and all of these really, really cool, simple things, as most people would put it. But I don't think it's that easy, right? And I think that's kind of what the acknowledgement thing is for me. It's easy to say that you want someone to acknowledge who it is that you are, but that's not always the case. To keep it simple, we're going to start with the simplest way that we do things here is that we kind of begin with a definition. So we are going to start with that. And the definition that we are going to go with for acknowledgement is that acknowledgement is the act of recognizing or affirming the existence, value, or efforts of someone or something. It is a powerful tool that fosters connection, respect, and understanding in our personal lives, relationships, and society at large. Whether it's acknowledging yours, others, or broader societal contributions, it is an essential part of building meaningful connections. So what the hell does that mean? All right, now, I think maybe some of my own understanding when it comes to acknowledgement is basically having someone, even if it is yourself, be the person that recognizes not only the why you done something, but the level or degree that you achieved it at. So, a simple example. Oh, I suck at discipline when it comes to something like the gym. I can't understand what the goal of working out is, so it makes it difficult for me to do something. Some people struggle with that in cleaning. Some people struggle with that in cooking. Some people struggle with that and learning a new thing, studying, picking up a new hobby, meeting new friends, whatever that thing is, right? And I feel like acknowledgement is either what is given or received when there is some kind of understanding as to what the purpose behind your movement was. And when I speak about movement, I mean intention, I mean execution, because those two things can sometimes be very, very different. But in this regard, I think it's also really important to understand that it's harder in my own understanding to be hyper aware of yourself and focus on something like self acknowledgement versus the ability that we all learn to see and feel what that feels like from someone. Now, this can mean lots of things. And I think whether we're going to have the conversation of relationships and love languages, whether we're going to have the relationship between parents and kids, kids and parents, whatever that's going to look like, or just complete strangers as well, because that's also something that needs to be understood. Within acknowledgement, you need to know what you're feeling. You need to know, for self acknowledgement now, sorry, starting there. You need to know what you're feeling. You need to be able to own what it is that you're feeling, even if it is not a nice thing, even if it is not a positive thing. And that can sometimes be very, very difficult because no one wants to be the bad guy. And with a lot of my family, I tend to have a saying that I give off when I'm confronted with something that I don't quite like about someone. And it's that people are people and people are selfish. And it's not meant to be a negative statement. And it's also not to speak to negative things in a person. I more think that the statement is that when people can put their best foot forward, it is generally for them, in my own opinion. And whether that's trauma, my experience, whatever that thing is going to be, that doesn't really matter to me. It's kind of just how it is. But being able to recognize one's own emotions will also then speak to understanding one's own achievements, one's own faults, one's own failings, and those back two can be a little bit harder sometimes to own, because you can apologize 100 times. They tend to say that the best apology is change behavior. Yeah, but what if you just don't know there's a different way to do that thing? And a lot of people don't understand because they can't fathom that another person might not know how to do something. But we need to give each other a lot more grace than we actually do, right? And small caveat, this week I am going to be attempting to work in my song recommendations into the episode. So an example of this self-acknowledgement and what I'm trying to talk about, just so that you can have example number one. In recognizing what it is that I was feeling in the last, let's call it the last 9 days, I tend to climb into music, and an artist that I've already recommended, but I'm going to recommend the track again because it was just that type of 9 days for me. It's a track by Mel's Monday called Solitude. Lovely listen. The album is phenomenal. You will not waste your time, but it is a listener, not necessarily a rap along or sing along like a couple of my other recommendations. So there is that. So in the self-acknowledgement thing, when I was trying to climb into what it is that I was feeling, yes, I was unfortunately piggybacking off what someone else was saying. So there is that. I kind of do use music to communicate what it is that I'm thinking and feeling sometimes when I can't get the words out. Again, something I think is fairly normal, right? But from that, I think the point of acknowledgement is obviously for us to try and overcome the self-doubt, to celebrate yourself, to kind of come into your own as who it is that you want to be in the world, right? And that is not a very simple task. I think it's a lifelong task. It's an activity you will be doing forever and a day. So that is a hard but important opening, I guess. And then there's a couple of sayings, well, let me just say it's stuff that I wrote down that's actually easier, that kind of played on my brain while I was thinking about this topic to talk about. And the first one is that potential doesn't equal a positive result. And the second one is that teachers can't grade work that isn't submitted. So what the hell does that mean? Okay, so when it comes to emotional conversations, when it comes to you experience this and I experience that conversations, those conversations I think are the place where acknowledgement is the most difficult. It is the hardest to give, it is the hardest to apply, it is the hardest to consider as the important thing in those moments. Yet, if the goal of acknowledgement is to strengthen and build connection with people, it is those very moments that require that from you. And that can be a little bit difficult for us to wrap our heads around, I'm guessing. So when I am learning something, especially when I'm now with a lot of the life lessons I'm trying to learn, um, practical is the best way to do it. But the problem is you need to be in those bad situations. You need to be in those unfamiliar situations. Okay, and on that note, we're going to do a small switch up on the recommendation. Instead of going on the unfamiliar train, we are going to go with Familiar by Madison Ryan Ward. I don't have enough words in the English vocabulary that I own to speak about how brilliant this woman's music is. You cannot go wrong, start anywhere, pick anything. Have fun, enjoy that. But anyway, when it comes to acknowledging it in these unfamiliar moments, these difficult times that you almost can't be who it is that you've always been because you know you are making that mistake, you have to try a new thing. And you have to try a new thing and fail. And that can potentially mean that someone will not acknowledge you in what it is that you are trying. You have to try something that you are not certain will be the solution to the problem that you are facing, which again can lead to someone having the opposite response as to what it is that you're intending. But those are important. And a lot of people will tell you that they aren't, but they are, because it's you. It's what you believe right now with all of the skills that you've acquired in your life. You believe that is the right answer. And that is important too, even when it's wrong. Because honestly, vulnerably, you can explain that to someone and say, listen, I actually did not know that this thing that I was going to do was going to hurt you. I did not know that this thing I was going to do was going to fail the way that it did. But it happens. And we need to be able to move past that, because I think maybe a bigger thing when it comes to our bonds with other people is we don't really understand what resolution looks like. We don't understand what fixed looks like. We all understand what burying our head in the sand looks like, and tucking tail and retreating and not standing on your answer. But that's a thing that happens. What would be some of the barriers of acknowledgement? What would get in the way? What would stop you feeling like you can say what it is that you need to say? Someone always not listening, just like you. Someone not always keeping their word, just like you. And the reason that I say that is because if the first piece of acknowledgement is something that has to do with self, it's a common problem, it's an easy problem, it's a familiar problem. It's in our face more often than not. So all of us are guilty of it. That's why we need grace. We don't need to be nice because people deserve niceness. We need to be nice because of no, that's the wrong word. I'm not a fan of that word. We need to be kind because of the fact that we get it wrong too. Because people are people, and people are selfish. So give just because you want in return, sure. But then ask for what it is that you want in return, so that when the other person gives it, it makes it a lot easier for you to acknowledge, thus reaffirming the correct behavior, thus unintentionally training someone the way a dog is trained with a treat. But at the very least, it's the right behavior, because then punishment would then be the counter to that. And you can get used to that too. And then you will never look for any kind of acknowledgement. And then acknowledging others goes out the window, and life is miserable and we are sad. Trouble. It makes a difference in both ways. It doesn't only make a positive difference. Nothing only makes a positive difference. Because then being heard, being seen, being told that you matter can be something that forces you to retaliate instead of soften, to get upset instead of calm. Imagine that. Imagine that one's understanding of the world can be that wrong. Scary, if you ask me. Scary. Okay, but quick little split, because we have a sponsor this week. Right. So this week we have a little video sponsor. We are sponsored by Eden, and they are busy having a Black Friday sale. So here we sin. Are you ready to indulge? This Black Friday, Eden invites you to embrace temptation with our Sinners sale. A daring 15% off everything. Perfumes that seduce, candles that enchant, sugar scrubs that reveal your glow, and bracelets that shimmer with sinful style. And for those who crave even more, discover the ultimate mystery, our self-care box, packed with indulgent surprises designed to satisfy your every desire. But beware, the sale won't last long, and the pleasures within are meant for those bold enough to seize them. Give in to your desires. The time to sin is now. Welcome to Eden's Sinner Sale. Don't just shop, dare to indulge. So, it's a lot. Being a person is a lot. Being yourself is exhausting. Being other people must be even more tiring. Being another person for a day would probably be something none of us would understand. Right? It's easy to hold on to. But the big secret, I think, and even when we consider ourselves, if we focus on ourselves, how many times are our affections and feelings being received as intended? I give you this thing and I want you to be happy about it, but that was a hectic day for you that happened that week, and I don't know about it, and you've been wanting to get that off your chest. And that's why you don't maybe smile as big when I give you this gift, and therefore I don't feel like you appreciate it, and. We are humans, guys. We are so susceptible to negative things because a lot of us have experienced a lot more negative things than positive things. It's not bad, it's just a thing. Small things can be amazing, big things can be irrelevant. It happens. And the vice versa is also true. You can't always be at 100%, but that doesn't mean when you're at 10% you're less deserving. Right? But yeah, I think the focus of the episode kind of comes down to, can you focus on yourself? Can you highlight what it is that you need, how it is that you need it? Because listening to someone else while dismissing who it is that you are is probably the most common form of betrayal I hear about and experience and commit. Because I think it's that easy. It's easy to not be able to tell anybody what it is that you're going through or what it is that you're feeling because of the anticipation of the judgment, because of the expectation of being misunderstood. But can't be the default setting. Can't. Someone has to be willing to risk it. So be that person. Be ordinary enough to risk it, And I think that's why, while recording the episode, while talking to you, that's kind of the piece that's resonating with me the most, is just yourself as an individual. Get that person to come a little bit more forward. And not to make a noise. It's not about shrinking and diminishing other people. It's not about that. But it's being the volume that you intend to be. It's living life at the speed, at the level, in the way that makes sense to you, even if it's just right now, even if it's for the next 5 minutes, even if it's just for the length of this episode. Let that be a thing that becomes important. Focus on you. Weird. And if you are an anime fan, I have to give a recommendation. I am late to the party with the show, but I recommend it. Assassination School speaks with exactly what it is that this topic is about. It is about being acknowledged, but in its own unique way, by some weird alien, not alien thing, So yeah, I'm finishing up season 2 now. It is, it's made me believe I could be a teacher, and I know it's not true, because I think I suck at teaching people, because I'm bad at empathy. live life through my own lens. But that's just not how that works, right? So those are the pieces of acknowledgement that I think matter. And because of the fact that I only got a chance to work in 2 of my song recommendations, I'm just gonna blast the back 3 quickly. So the third one, this is both a song recommendation as well as an album recommendation, by a up and coming. I can't tell you from where he is. I can't tell you what he does. I can just tell you that I listened to this album and it was amazing. Oh, so the album or the artist's name is Key 2, and the track's name is Hold Me. That is the song recommendation for this week. But the album is called Re-Entry. I don't know what other way to say it, but it is music, right? Yeah. And the other 2 recommendations are Crocodile Tears by Coltrane featuring Che Shakur. Yeah. I love these spontaneous bangers that find me. And then the final recommendation is Open Letter by Chosen. Right? So that is the 5. I will work at a way to get the music into it. I just need to get into consistency. That is the battle that I am currently facing when it comes to the podcast, but I'm sure there's a reason for that as well. Okay, but thank you for joining us on this journey into a small conversation. I feel like it's a very incomplete conversation. It hasn't gotten to the end, but that's also okay. About acknowledgement, I am still trying to keep the episodes fairly brief while we are still getting to know one another, while I'm getting to know myself behind the camera. But remember that every small act of acknowledgement counts, both for yourself and for others, even if they don't see it. But, right, focus on things that you can see, focus on things that you are hearing from others, and valuing what's around you, especially if you can spend time with yourself. I think that's really, really important acknowledgement to start with. So maybe let's focus on that for the next month, because I think this is an important lesson. But this has been the Ordinary Connection podcast, where we explore the everyday topics that connect us. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone you'd like to acknowledge you today. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and stay connected.